So for the past 4 years, I've been covering Test Drive Unlimited on my YouTube channel, and during those past 4 years, before we found out the location of TDUSC, or back then we knew it as only TDU3, I kind of went through all of the possible islands that I think TDUSC is going to be located on, and I ended up going with Tenerife, and lo and behold, that was completely wrong. I ended up getting an island that was much smaller, and that would be Hong Kong Island. Now, don't get me wrong, Hong Kong Island is still a pretty damn good map, especially after seeing it way back in June in person for the first time. And I still stand by saying that this might be the best open world racing game map that we've gotten for the past decade. However, as we all know, Test Drive Unlimited 1 started off with one map, and well, because TDUSC is basically made from scratch, we're only going to get one island this time at launch. However, it made me think, now that we actually know the technical limitations of a game, we understand more about development, I thought, let me go back to this island guessing thing. Let me think of a great location that can either be in Test Drive Unlimited Solo Crown 2 or even a post-launch DLC at a reasonable size. So let's quickly recap all of the past islands that I've talked to you guys about, and then let's talk about the island that I actually think is a perfect fit for the next Test Drive Unlimited Solo Crown game, or in fact a DLC. Because let's all be honest, as we're getting closer to launch, chances are these conversations are probably going to be happening at KT around about now, or even just after the game launches. Let's go. Okay, so here we are on Google Earth. Now, as you guys might remember, I've kind of covered a ton of islands. We've gone over Ibiza, we've gone over Menorca and Mallorca, which are both next to each other. We've also gone over on this side of the map, covering both Tenerife, Gran Canaria, La Palma, and so many other islands, including even there's one somewhere here that's actually São Miguel that I've even talked about. And even on this side of Brazil, I've even gone over this island here, which is Florianopolis, which is just off the coast. But the one island I haven't really talked about yet is Elba. And let me talk to you guys why I think that this location might be the best location and the most reasonable to develop location for a Test Drive Unlimited game. So let's talk about it. So one thing I want to point out is that when you're making a Test Drive Unlimited game, you kind of have to take into account the map's location. Now, obviously, we started off Test Drive Unlimited 1 with Oahu, and then we went over to Ibiza. Now, looking at the architecture of both islands, you can tell they're both vastly different. They both offer vastly different road system, they both offer different vegetation, they both offer different terrain, a different vibe, and so much things will actually differ from these two islands, and it kind of contrasts the two locations between them. And to be honest, I think the same thing should follow for Kiloton's Test Drive Unlimited series. And the best way to explain this is looking at, well, Google Earth, as I just showed you guys. Now, obviously, Ibiza is right here, and it kind of offers a dry experience. However, I want to point out that this island, honestly, as much as we can say that TD2 was nice at 1:1 scale and everything, it was vastly different from the IRL location. That's one thing that Kiloton are striving to perfect in TDUSC. They really want to make it true and accurate throughout the whole island. But as we know, this whole strip in TDU2 is actually literally just dry land with those little like rock-like sculptures that pop out of the ground throughout this whole highway. I mean, there's even a tunnel right here. I bet you guys didn't even know that. This wasn't even mapped in the game. This just went above, and then you still had this thing here, but the car wash is right here. So you guys might remember this location on Ibiza. It looks nothing different. There's little trees and forests all the way over there on that side. That unfortunately wasn't in TD2, so it wasn't really that accurate. And that was down to them obviously having to rush the game. Then also just when you go that big and you try to make it from scratch again, it's hard to really detail a map to how it is in real life when you go this large. Which again, the Test Drive Unlimited series is based on that recreation at a really good vibe. But basically, Ibiza and TD2 was kind of dry, and then Oahu was very lush and green and vegetation basically populated. So if you go over to Hong Kong Island, which you guys can see right here, obviously there's a lot of dense forest surrounding the entire island. When you zoom out, obviously near the equator, the earth is going to get drier. So you can see all the dry land that's following across here. And I want to point out that obviously we should probably get an island that contrasts Hong Kong Island. So it would have to be something kind of dry. So if you go over here, obviously Tenerife, you guys already know. I love the island, and if we're being honest with ourselves, it is massive. To be able to render this entire island, to be able to get this optimized, to be able to build it accurately, the road network, buildings, guys, this is a 10-year job if we're being honest with ourselves. And unfortunately, the tech to be able to do that, it just isn't there right now. I understand that we can say that 10 years in the past it's possible, but we can't lie to ourselves. It's not going to be a very quick process being able to build this at 1:1 scale. Now, if you go to Gran Canaria, it's a little bit smaller. However, it still has the same thing. And then you run into a lot of the map being unusable because, well, you can't really drive across these two ledges. So what island really works then? Well, if you go over to the west coast of Italy, there's an island right in between Corsica and Italy, and that is called Elba. I think that this island could be the answer to all of our Test Drive Unlimited itches. It's something that offers a different experience compared to Hong Kong Island, yet it still has some of that dry landscape and different vegetation. So let's take a look at it. And by the way, it being between Corsica and Italy, and also not that far away from Ibiza, kind of gives it the same temperature wise and everything. So if you look at this island again really quickly, you can see that obviously Ibiza still has that dry vibe, different vegetation across, and that is literally what this is on a smaller scale. So zooming in, let's take a look. And if I show you the very first thing to get you hyped on why I think that this is a perfect fit for test drive, let's go in, drag and drop, and here we are. The very first coastal road that might have you hyped for a map this size. But what is Elba? Well, let's talk about it. So of course, Elba is a Mediterranean island, and the one thing I want to point out, it has an area of 224 kilometers squared, which if Kiloton are able to develop this, would actually make it the largest modern open world racing game map, which at the moment, I actually think it's Forza Horizon coming in at around 125 or 150 kilometers squared. However, we all know Forza Horizon's map, despite its larger size, is quite open and there's not much to do on the map. Now, the area of Elba actually makes it more than double the size of Hong Kong Island. In fact, it's actually almost 3 times the size of Hong Kong Island. And on top of that, the highest point of elevation on this island is double the height of the largest elevation on Hong Kong Island. Now, you all know Victoria Peak is the largest point on Hong Kong Island, coming in at 552 meters or 1,811 feet. And then Elba's comes in at a whopping 1,018 meters, or for those of you who don't understand that unit, basically 3,340 feet. And just to show you guys what that looks like in real life, take a look on the screen of Mont Campane, which, well, I'm probably butchering that name. It's probably something with a more fresher Italian accent, which honestly I don't really have. But the point being, the elevation here is pretty good, so it can get you some really nice views across the island. And as I said before, the good thing about Test Drive Unlimited 2 between Oahu and Ibiza was that the two maps offered a yin and yang. So there was a highway system in Oahu. However, the highway system in Ibiza in TD2 was a lot less pronounced. It was more of rural back roads and small roads that led you throughout the island, rather than a massive highway system that basically went from north to south. I mean, there was only really a small one on Ibiza, and that kind of brought you from west to east. But nonetheless, Elba is kind of just like Ibiza in a similar way, where it doesn't have that bunched up, bustling life of a city like Hong Kong Island. It has a more rural experience. It still has those fresh mountains. It still has the vegetation, still has the back roads. It has all of that, just on a less city life scale. So let's go back and explore the whole island. Okay, so we are back on Google Maps, and let's take a look at this beautiful island. Now, that road I just showed you guys, basically it even goes around the entire coast. So if I follow it literally the whole entire way, and Google Earth has changed, don't know why, but it's gonna take me a while to figure out how to use this. There we go. You can see you still get the beautiful landscape of the coastal drives. Now, we all know Kiloton is going to widen the roads to make them more playable, but you guys can get the point. This would make for some great racing vibes along the coast. And just like past TDU games, the drive along the coast should be really good. Now, another large difference between Oahu and Ibiza was the architecture, which you guys can see that this kind of reminds you of Ibiza, with those small villages hidden throughout the island, which you guys can see you can probably repopulate this in terms of racing and kind of make some small intersections here and there, populate it. I can already see Kiloton doing a really good job recreating this. But moving on, you have that road walking all the way through as it goes through all the villages throughout the island. And I mean, who's to say Kiloton can't even add a tunnel that basically cuts through here rather than taking this entire coastal loop? I mean, that's the whole point of being able to have some artistic freedom on an island. You get to create small little things that kind of improve the experience. Now, moving up on the mountain, you guys can see stuff like this, which if we go and drag and drop, hopefully it shows. So it doesn't actually show there, but if we follow one of these routes along, there should be somewhere that I can show you guys that might get you hyped. So as you guys can see, following up the mountain, there's actually a lot of two-gay roads. If I literally drag and drop right here, take a look at this location. You already know exactly the type of vibes that we could be getting here. Obviously, it might need to be expanded for gameplay purposes, but the whole point is that a road is there. It's possible to turn this into a whole driving experience up the mountain, which again, the highest point, if I remember correctly, is a Mount Campane. I need to say this properly. Campane. No, that's Spanish. Honestly, I can't even really tell you. But anyways, the point is, you could definitely get a road up here. And if I actually drag and drop again, let's go right here and see what's there. This should be a walking path. And it is. But let me ask you guys something. What has Kiloton done on Hong Kong Island for Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown? Well, if you've been paying attention to the newsletters, you would know that Kiloton have turned some of the hiking trails or walking paths on Hong Kong Island into actual dirt roads. So, on a different island with similar walking paths and trails, why would they not decide to turn that into dirt roads as well? Which, for being honest, would be a very good idea on this island as well, because you can get some pretty good vibes up this mountain and some really good pictures with it as well. But moving on, taking a look at this island, you guys can see obviously it comes with an airport. Now, luckily the airport is pretty much right connected to the road, as it kind of should be. But the point is, there's an airport there, which I think a lot of people aren't too happy about is absent in TDSC, but there are still drag strip areas in TDSC, such as this clip here from the cruiser trailer. As you guys can see, the Alfa Romeo is driving on a pretty long straight, and it literally looks like a drag strip area. So at least that's drag strips settled in TDSC. But heading back to this map, obviously you have an airport, some little village areas here as well, which I'm sure would make for some nice town areas, just like the villages that were in Ibiza in TDU2. And beaches, well, guys, come on, what island doesn't have a beach? So beaches are still there and in a vast population throughout the entire island. And if you keep going further, you can start seeing a lot of these roads might actually start looking quite beautiful to you, as pretty much that's what happened to me. And if you go along to this side of the island here, you can see that there are indeed some pretty nice vibes that you can get. Let's drag and drop right here on one of the areas, and you can see that it still does have, oh, hold on, I didn't even know that this is a dirt road. This is a pretty nice dirt road that I'm now finding out for the first time. And I don't want to cover this entire map because honestly, one of my favorite things to do, and I think you guys should try it out too, just go to Google Earth and take a look at this island yourself, and also take a look at Hong Kong Island as well. And of course, no map is complete without a small little island that's near it that could end up becoming KT Island, just like how there's an Eden Island in Test Drive Limited 1 and Test Drive Limited 2. And before you say, Alex, I don't see anywhere dense on this island that could really be a really good city. Well, let me just zoom in right here and prove my points. There is literally an entire city village that reminds me of Ibiza. It's the same architecture, and that's the thing that I kind of think should happen as well, contrasting between Hong Kong Island's dense city lifestyle while still having, you know, the other side of the island that's less dense and has more villages and stuff. This architecture is kind of the difference between Ibiza and Oahu. I mean, it's American architecture basically between Spanish architecture, just like how Hong Kong Island would be the difference between Hong Kong architecture and of course Italian architecture. And with all these beaches scattered all across the island, guys, it would literally make for one of the best places. But that's pretty much it, guys. I don't want to go into too much detail about Elba Island because at the end of the day, I don't want to explore the whole thing. I want to leave some of it as a surprise. And also, I recommend you guys to go ahead, just go to Google Earth and check out the island for yourself. Let me know in the comment section below what you think of it, because as I've told you, it honestly has everything you need on the island while still contrasting the differences between a Hong Kong Island map and an Elba map, exactly just like how Oahu contrasts Ibiza. If you just scroll around all of these little roads that are throughout the island, take a look at them, you'll honestly understand exactly what I'm saying. There's a lot that could be done on a map like this, guys. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, because as I've said, understanding the technical limitations of development and everything like that, it is honestly an unfortunate sight that could happen when making a game. But I think this island is indeed reasonable at its size to be able to be implemented and made into a game, for whether that comes as DLC 5 years down the road or whether that comes as a new game 5 years down the road, who knows. But either way, I honestly think that this map could be the answer as an additional location for Kiloton's Test Drive Unlimited series. But like I said, guys, you already know what it is. I'm Alex7, and I'll see you guys in another video. Let me know in the comment section below what you think. I'm out, guys. Peace.